Hey, Chris Jenkins, credentialed member of the media, covering the Carolina Panthers for Charlotte Vibe, aka Man of the People. Why? Because I do things like give away Bryce Young jerseys during bye weeks before we play the big game against the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. The link is in the description for anyone that wants to register for that. Again, it's a Bryce Young black jersey that we will be giving away this Sunday as the Carolina Panthers take on that other team with that other pick, also known as the Houston Texans. So let's go ahead and roll into this coverage for today, Monday, October the 23rd, the first day back since the bye week. Brief update, but still nevertheless an informative one. And also just want to say once again, thank you to everyone with the congratulations to me. I appreciate it very much. Let's get into talking about this football team. So we're about to take on the Houston Texans, but we've had some players dealing with some injuries. So there is not going to be a lot of injury updates today because, well, they don't have to. And then Frank mentioned this thing called like trying to maintain a competitive advantage and not letting you know until he has to let you know, which is officially on Wednesday. To me, how much of a competitive advantage am I going to get in knowing that J.C. Horn, an update? He's not going, like any guy that you can give me an update on today, is not going to be like, oh, wow, he's back. Anyway, moving forward, he did talk about one player that has to be activated this week or not. That is Austin Corbett. He says he feels good about that. But again, definitive answers and information on Austin Corbett's return will happen on this Wednesday. So you had the bye week. Definitely a chance that you do some self-scouting, and you try to get better. Being 0-6, rest assured this team and this coaching staff did a lot of self-scouting and evaluation. So Frank Reich talked about, what he got out of the self-scouting that he did this week during the bye week.
We have had enough, 6 games. I start to think at about 6 games, you got a good sample size. Both from looking at your next opponent and also what we do. So, and then typically at these points, it's more just a matter of small incremental changes at multiple places rather than one big change. So that's really what we were looking at. What tendencies do we have scheme-wise? What have we had more success at versus less success? The stuff that we've been good at, is it a question of doing more than that, more of that? The schemes that maybe we haven't been as successful at, why haven't we been, evaluating the why behind those, not just looking at the numbers, going back, having the extra time to go back, study that film on those and say, these schemes are still good. We just need to execute a little bit better here or there. So, and we're really in all 3 phases, small incremental changes.
So Frank was asked about what changes, what things. He didn't say what changes, what things that he noticed they should improve on, get better at, modify, etc. He just talked about the process. So not a lot of information to get out of that other than Frank is basically saying, yes, we did do some self-scouting. And furthermore, play calling. I didn't get a chance to do too many videos last week due to some personal events going on. Play calling has been turned over to one Thomas Brown. I am excited about that. I do like that. And in terms of, hey, so what's going to change? What all did you talk about this week and from the bye week about the play calling? Saying that for the most part, the biggest change is just that Thomas is going to be the one making the final call. But everything like they did before, the collaboration that takes place prior to the game and planning for your opponent, that will maintain being the same. He will have input, Thomas will have input, but Thomas will have the final say so on a game day for that play call. I'll say final say, I guess he could override, but he says that he's not going to micromanage the process, which should mean Thomas wants to do something this way, then it should happen that way during game day. I'm looking forward to not seeing a lot of new plays, but just seeing the different flow of how plays are called, the different tempo for how plays may be ran. I'm looking forward to seeing that aspect of it this week versus the Houston Texans. Went on to talk about Bryce, our quarterback, our guy who's never started out 0-6. He probably, never has in his life probably. Bryce won't tell you this for sure, but I'm safe to bet on Bryce has never started out 0-6. We wanted to know, hey, did Bryce spend all or much of the bye week here in Charlotte, or did you try to make sure that he went away? Coach Frank Reich didn't answer that. Only saying that he wasn't purposeful or intentional about keeping the guys around Charlotte until about Wednesday at noon, figuring that would give them a lot of time to still be here, but then cut it off to go and do other things that they wish to. He thought about, was that the right decision? Should they have given them more time off, less time off? And he feels like his decision and making sure these guys were out of here by 12 o'clock on Wednesday was it. Now, my opinion, Bryce Young was around. That's my opinion. He would not confirm it, but that's my opinion on that. Coach, again, just deferred to saying what his process was for the bye week. Last thing, and I see we have some questions that have come up about this in the comments. So let me also say, what's up, Chris Mack? You know, people that are members of this channel, you get all these special sound effects when you come on to the channel, and I really appreciate you coming on, being a member of the channel. So we're always going to take a moment to acknowledge you. Heard anything about the Panthers trades? Not yet. Okay. You know, I was dealing with my stuff last week. Today was the first day back. Not much going on. You heard everything, right? You heard about Terrace Marshall Jr. being given permission to seek a trade. Haven't heard any updates on if there's any takers for that. Don't feel like that's going to be something big. You've heard about Dante Jackson being inquired about. Brian Burns has forever been talked about. So there's just a lot of talk about who and what. Unless I have anything significant, I like to just wait until the cards fall where they are and then give you my analysis and report from that point. But I'll, again, if I get anything or hear anything, I'll let you know. But I can confirm, again, not everybody, but there's been some players that have been talked about being traded by the trade deadline and having some interest in that. So, Mason on YouTube, hopefully I got that correctly. Thank you very much for the congratulations. And speaking about trades, does recency bias have anything to do with how trades gone? The way that the guy has played just today, just last week. How do you feel, Coach Reich, that affects players and the ability to trade them?
I don't think it plays in as much as some people think it may or may not. I think if there's as I've looked at it over the years, and I really haven't been on that many places that there's been a whole lot of activity, to be honest with you. So I think if a team is making a decision to move a certain way, it's based off of a lot of information. Very little about that is just won the last week or so.
So there's Frank talking about, hey, does the fact that Brian Burns hasn't lit it up, had, big sack games and impact, do you think that affects his trade value? He just says he doesn't think it does too much, but I'm going to tell you, in my humble opinion, it does. What have you done for me lately? That is also why you have known very much so in the NFL, your best ability is availability, because it's all about now. In terms of what a player has done, which also will help influence and dictate their trade value. And I'm going to tell you, being 0-6 doesn't help us have much power when it comes to trading players. Everybody knows, well, you're not doing too good. You might want some new pieces to help you rebuild, restructure, get stronger on your team. So that's what we have there. Got a few more questions from Chris Mack. I'm going to try to address these. I already touched on that one, Chris. And then he says, hypothetically, say Thomas Brown lights it up and we win like 8 games the rest of the way. Should Tepper fire Frank and promote Thomas the head coach in the offseason? No. Not at all. If that happens, actually, that's Frank Reich taking the credit for making that move, for picking that hire, for how he's put Thomas Brown in a position to succeed on his team. Because also, if the offense lights it up, well, the defense has had to do something too, because the offense could light it up and we lose. We could lose 35-42. So if Thomas Brown lights it up, which Bryce Young would be the one technically lighting it up. But if Thomas Brown's play calling does allow Bryce Young all this capabilities that you saw at Alabama, more points being on the board, more creativity being taking place, more point guard type ability that you have heard about him. Now you can actually see it at the pro level. No, Frank Reich doesn't go anywhere. If anything, that makes Frank Reich's seat very cold. I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess, is that the right to say it? Because it's warm, it's when you're on the hot seat. But Frank Reich being in a very good position to have stability here with the Carolina Panthers if this team does turn around, because he was the one that made the decision and gave it over to Thomas, and again guided Thomas on the collaboration for the play calling. So appreciate the question, Chris Mack. And I think we got a few more. Noah Sparks. Good afternoon, Chris. Actually looking forward to the game this weekend, hoping for some changes. I'm looking forward to it too. We got something to be excited about after the bye week, despite being 0-6. So I'm all here for it. David Chisholm, congrats. I can't show it on the screen. Congrats on the kiddos, Chris. Thank you very much. So, man, our first day with the kids home, having all three, we have 4 total, but the other one's out of the house. They immediately took us to it because now, for the first time, we're outnumbered, kids to adult. And, for the first time, it's like my wife's with the newborn, and then I'm with the 2-year-old, and both hands are full, like taking care of kids first thing Sunday morning. And it really went that way the whole day, but I appreciate it, David. I'm not going to talk about the kiddos nonstop, but I am excited about my newest addition. Leonard Kowalski says, good day, Chris and Panthers Nation. Remember, everybody can have a good day. Following Charlotte Vibe, subscribing to the YouTube channel. We're giving away that Bryce Young jersey. All you got to do is look in the description. You'll see a link there that allows you to easily register to win. And there's also ways that you can increase your chances of winning that jersey. So check that out if you are interested. All right, I'm going to end on this one from David Chisholm. Who has the better game against whose defense this week, Bryce or CJ? Who has the better game this week? I'm going to go for Bryce. Bryce will have the better game this week. All right, so let me just not be a homer and think about who has the better game. And I'm thinking, well, if one person could have the better game and still lose, could they not? I'm not prepared to answer that question, David. Who has the better game against whose defense? I don't even know what our defense is going to look like. I don't know who's going to be traded, who's going to be here. But you know what I'm going to invite you to do? I'm going to invite you to make sure that you stay tuned into the channel, because on our pregame show, which happened at 11 o'clock this Sunday, that's when we go really in depth about the matchup ahead. And I'll be collecting information, being in the locker room this week, to get some details from the Panthers players about how they're preparing for Houston, what they're looking to do. And I'll be able to tell you at that point, because right now I just have not gotten into my game prep yet for Houston versus the Panthers. Honest answers here, nothing but honest answers from Chris Jenkins, man of the people at Charlotte Vibe. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Register to win that jersey, okay? Have some new Panthers gear that you can either put in the man cave, wear to the game, wear for Victory Monday, whatever you like. Thank you again for watching. Chris Jenkins for Charlotte Vibe.